The blood-red sunset cast long shadows across the dusty thoroughfare of Colorado City, Colorado, as Gabriella Nash clutched the torn remnants of her show poster, tears threatening to spill from her eyes. The year was 1878, and her dreams of musical stardom had just been shattered along with the stagecoach windows. Bandits had taken everything: ticket proceeds, costumes, and even her cherished violin, an heirloom from her grandmother. Now she stood alone, stranded in a town she'd only intended to perform in for a single night before continuing to Denver. "Guess you'll be staying a while after all," came a deep voice from behind her. Gabriella whirled around to find a tall man leaning against the hitching post, Stetson tipped low over his eyes. When he raised his head, she caught a glimpse of startlingly blue eyes beneath the brim. "I've been waiting for you anyway." Gabriella narrowed her eyes, unconsciously taking a step back. "I beg your pardon. Do I know you, sir?" The man straightened, and she noted the star pinned to his vest. "Sheriff Samuel Rawlins, madam. Word came by telegraph that a notable singer was headed our way. When the stage didn't arrive on schedule, I figured something had gone wrong." He gestured to the tattered poster in her hand. "I take it you're Miss Gabriella Nash." "I am," she replied, straightening her shoulders despite the dust coating her traveling dress. "Though I'm afraid the notable singer part may have been somewhat exaggerated by my former manager. And now it hardly matters since I've lost everything required to perform." The sheriff nodded solemnly, his expression softening. "Stage robberies becoming all too common on that stretch. You're lucky to be alive, Miss Nash. Many aren't so fortunate." "Lucky," she echoed hollowly. "I'm penniless in a strange town with no means to continue my journey or even secure lodging for the night. Forgive me if I don't feel particularly blessed at the moment." "That's where you're wrong," Sheriff Rawlins said, the hint of a smile playing at his lips. "You see, Colorado City's been preparing for your arrival for weeks. The mining booms brought wealth but precious little culture. Folks here would give their eyeteeth for a proper performance." Gabriella shook her head. "I appreciate the sentiment, Sheriff, but without my violin, we have a piano at the Grand Hotel," he interrupted. "And Mrs. Patterson, the owner's wife, plays the fiddle something fierce when she's had a nip of whiskey." He gestured down the street. "The town councils put aside funds to pay any performers who come through. Seems to me, being stranded here might just be the luckiest thing to happen to you yet." She studied him carefully, wondering if this man was simply being kind or if there was something more behind his offer. "And where exactly am I supposed to stay while I consider this proposition?" "The Grand has a room waiting," he said. "Paid for in advance when we heard you were coming." "You've been waiting for me," she repeated his earlier words, understanding dawning. "Yes, madam," Sheriff Rawlins said, offering his arm. "The whole town has." As they walked down the dusty street, Gabriella couldn't help but wonder if this unexpected detour might lead somewhere she never anticipated. The sheriff's steady presence beside her felt oddly comforting after the terror of the robbery. And for the first time since the bandits had descended on the stagecoach, she allowed herself to breathe. The Grand Hotel was indeed the most impressive building in Colorado City, a 3-story structure with actual glass windows and a freshly painted sign. As they entered the lobby, Gabriella became acutely aware of her disheveled appearance. Her once fine traveling suit was torn at the hem and covered in trail dust. "Mrs. Patterson," Sheriff Rawlins called, and a plump woman with graying hair pinned in a severe bun appeared from a back room. "Samuel Rawlins, if you've brought another drunk miner to sleep it off, I'll—" She stopped short at the sight of Gabriella. "Oh my, is this her?" "The singer, Miss Gabriella Nash," the sheriff confirmed with a slight bow. "Her stage was robbed coming in. She's lost her belongings and instruments." Mrs. Patterson's hands flew to her mouth. "Mercy me, you poor dear," she hurried forward, taking Gabriella's hands in her own. "We'll get you settled right away. A hot bath, clean clothes. I have a daughter about your size who's married and living in Pueblo now. And food. You must be famished." Overwhelmed by the woman's kindness, Gabriella could only nod gratefully. "The room's ready like I promised," Sheriff Rawlins said. "And I'll start tracking those bandits at first light. With any luck, we might recover your belongings." "Thank you, Sheriff," Gabriella said softly. "You've been most kind, Sam," he corrected with a gentle smile. "Everyone just calls me Sam." An hour later, Gabriella sank into a copper tub filled with steaming water in the privacy of a surprisingly elegant room on the hotel's second floor. Mrs. Patterson had indeed provided everything: clean undergarments, a simple but well-made blue dress, and even a pair of boots that fit reasonably well. The hot water soothed her aching muscles, and as she leaned back, she allowed herself to contemplate her situation. Colorado City wasn't what she'd expected. Having grown up in Boston, she'd imagined frontier towns to be little more than collections of crude wooden shacks populated by rough men. While there was certainly an edge of rawness to the place, it clearly had aspirations beyond being just another mining settlement. A soft knock at the door startled her from her reverie. "Miss Nash, I've brought you some supper," called Mrs. Patterson's voice. "I'll just leave the tray outside your door." "Thank you," Gabriella called back. "I'll be out shortly." She finished her bath and dressed in the borrowed clothes, finding them a reasonable fit. The mirror above the washstand reflected a young woman of 23 years, her honey blonde hair now clean and falling in damp waves around her shoulders, green eyes bright against skin lightly tanned from weeks of traveling. She looked more like herself again, though the uncertainty in her expression was new. The tray outside her door contained a hearty stew, fresh bread still warm from the oven, and a slice of apple pie. Gabriella realized she was ravenous and ate every bite. As twilight deepened into night, she found herself drawn to the window. Below, the main street of Colorado City was coming alive with lamplight. Music and laughter drifted up from the saloon across the way, and riders passed through, their horses' hooves kicking up dust that glowed golden in the lantern light. Among them, she spotted Sheriff Rawlins making his evening rounds, stopping to speak with townsfolk as he went. There was something compelling about the way he carried himself, confident but not arrogant, strong but not intimidating. He paused beneath a lamppost, and for a moment he glanced up toward her window. Gabriella stepped back quickly, her heart inexplicably racing. The next morning dawned clear and bright. Gabriella dressed and made her way downstairs to find the hotel dining room bustling with activity. Mrs. Patterson spotted her immediately and waved her over to a table where Sheriff Rawlins was already seated. "Good morning, Miss Nash," he said, standing as she approached. "I trust you slept well." "Better than expected, thank you," she replied, taking the offered chair. "Coffee?" Mrs. Patterson asked, already pouring a cup before Gabriella could respond. "And we've got flapjacks, eggs, and bacon this morning." "That sounds lovely," Gabriella said, realizing she was still hungry despite the hearty meal the night before. As Mrs. Patterson bustled away, Gabriella turned to the sheriff. "Have you any news of the bandits?" Sam shook his head, his expression grim. "Not yet. I've sent wires to neighboring towns, but these fellas are slippery. They've hit 3 stages in the last month." Gabriella's heart sank. "Then my belongings are likely gone for good." "Maybe not," Sam said, leaning forward. "They tend to sell what they steal. Instruments fetch a good price, but they're also distinctive. Your violin might turn up." The thought brought a small measure of comfort. Her grandmother's violin was the last connection to her family, all now gone. In the meantime, Sam continued, the town council met this morning. They're eager to hear you sing even without your usual accompaniment. They're offering $50 for a performance tomorrow night. Gabriella nearly choked on her coffee. $50 for one night. Sam's eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled. Told you folks here are hungry for entertainment. Mining's brought money, but not much refinement. Having a real singer from back east is a rare treat. Mrs. Patterson returned with a plate heaped with food. The whole town's talking about it already, she said excitedly. We've hung notices at the mining office and the general store. But I haven't agreed yet, Gabriella protested weakly. Will you? Sam asked, his blue eyes intent on hers. Gabriella considered her options, which were admittedly limited. The $50 would be enough to secure passage to Denver, with money left over to start again. And in truth, the prospect of performing wasn't unwelcome. Singing was the one thing that had always brought her joy, even during the darkest times after her parents' deaths. I'll need to practice with the piano, she said at last. And meet this fiddle playing Mrs. Patterson I've heard so much about. The older woman flushed with pleasure. Oh, I'm nothing special, but I can keep a tune when called upon. The piano's in the hotel parlor. It's a bit out of tune, but Mr. Calloway at the church has promised to come by this afternoon and set it right. Then yes, Gabriella decided. I'll sing for Colorado City tomorrow night. After breakfast, Gabriella made her way to the hotel parlor, a surprisingly elegant room with velvet curtains and a somewhat worn but still handsome broadwood piano. She ran her fingers over the keys, finding it not as badly out of tune as Mrs. Patterson had suggested. After playing a few scales to warm up, she began to sing softly, testing her voice after the ordeal of the previous day. The familiar exercise calmed her nerves, and soon she was lost in the music, moving from vocal exercises to the arias and ballads that formed her usual repertoire. So absorbed was she that she didn't notice Sam standing in the doorway until she finished a particularly moving rendition of Beautiful Dreamer. That was something special, he said quietly, stepping into the room. Folks around here aren't used to singing like that. Gabriella felt a blush creep up her neck. I didn't realize I had an audience. Couldn't help myself, Sam admitted, his expression unguarded for a moment. I was passing by and heard an angel. The compliment, delivered without artifice, touched her more deeply than the elaborate praises she'd received in concert halls back east. I'm hardly that, she demurred. But I do love to sing. It shows, Sam said. He hesitated, then added, I came to tell you I'm heading out to track those bandits. Might be gone overnight. Gabriella nodded, surprised by the disappointment she felt. Of course, that's your duty. Mrs. Patterson and her husband will look after you, he assured her. And I've asked Deputy Collins to keep an extra eye on the hotel, just in case. You think the bandits might come here? Alarm sharpened her voice. Sam shook his head quickly. No, nothing like that. Just a precaution. Colorado City's generally peaceful, but we get all sorts passing through. He paused. I aim to be back for your performance tomorrow night. I'd like that, Gabriella said, the words escaping before she could consider their implications. A slow smile spread across Sam's face. Then I'll make sure to be there. After he left, Gabriella found it difficult to concentrate on her practice. The sheriff was an unexpected complication in what was already a complicated situation. She'd sworn off romantic entanglements after her disastrous engagement to Edward Harrington Roman III, a Boston socialite who had proven more interested in her modest inheritance than in Gabriella herself. After discovering his true nature and his mistress, she had broken the engagement and fled westward, determined to make her own way through her music. Yet there was something about Samuel Rawlins that felt different, a sincerity that cut through her defenses like a hot knife through butter. It was too soon to call it anything more than friendly interest, she told herself firmly. And in any case, she wouldn't be staying in Colorado City long enough to find out. The rest of the day passed in a blur of preparation. Mr. Calloway arrived to tune the piano, proving to be a cheerful elderly man who had once been a concert pianist in New York before the call of the mountains had lured him west. Mrs. Patterson revealed herself to be a more than competent fiddler, and together they worked out accompaniments for Gabriella's songs. Word of her arrival had spread through town, and throughout the afternoon, various citizens found excuses to stop by the hotel and peek into the parlor. By evening, Gabriella had met the mayor, the town doctor, the schoolteacher, and countless miners and shopkeepers, all expressing enthusiasm for the upcoming performance. "You're quite the sensation," Mrs. Patterson remarked as they finished practicing. "I haven't seen the town this stirred up since that traveling circus came through with the two-headed calf," Gabriella laughed. "I'm not sure how I feel about being compared to a bovine curiosity." "Oh, I didn't mean it like that," Mrs. Patterson said hastily. "It's just that entertainment's scarce out here. Most evenings, folks have nothing better to do than drink at the saloon or play cards." She lowered her voice conspiratorially. "And between you and me, a refined young lady like yourself is bound to attract attention from the unmarried men hereabouts. We're short on eligible women." "I'm not looking for a husband, Mrs. Patterson," Gabriella said firmly. "Of course not, dear," the older woman replied with a knowing smile. "But I couldn't help but notice the way our sheriff looks at you." Gabriella busied herself with arranging sheet music. "Sheriff Rawlins has simply been kind to a stranded traveler, nothing more." "If you say so," Mrs. Patterson said, clearly unconvinced. "Though I've known Sam Rawlins for 5 years, and I've never seen him look at any woman the way he looks at you." Before Gabriella could formulate a response, Mr. Patterson appeared in the doorway. "Telegram for you, Miss Nash," he said, holding out a yellow paper. Gabriella took it with trembling fingers, wondering who could possibly be sending her a message. The telegram was brief and unsigned. "Will attend performance stop, discuss future opportunities stop. Strange," she murmured. "I don't know anyone in Colorado City who would send this. Must be someone who's heard about your singing and is traveling in for the show," Mrs. Patterson suggested. "Perhaps a theater manager from Denver." The possibility sent a flutter of excitement through Gabriella. If someone with connections to Denver's growing cultural scene had heard of her performance, it could mean an opportunity beyond what she'd hoped for. That night, she slept fitfully, her dreams a confused jumble of bandits, applauding audiences, and a certain blue-eyed sheriff who kept appearing to rescue her from various perilous situations. She awoke early, feeling unrested but too keyed up to return to sleep. After dressing, she slipped downstairs and out onto the hotel's small veranda. The town was just beginning to stir, the eastern sky painted with the pale gold of approaching dawn. The air was crisp and clean, carrying the scent of pine from the mountains visible in the distance. "Morning, Miss Nash." Gabriella started at the voice, turning to find Deputy Collins approaching with a steaming mug in each hand. "Mrs. Patterson mentioned you were an early riser," he said, offering one of the mugs. "Thought you might like some coffee." "Thank you, Deputy," she said, accepting the welcome brew. "Any word from Sheriff Rawlins?" Collins shook his head. "Not yet, madam, but that's not unusual when he's tracking. Sam's half Cherokee on his mother's side learned tracking from his grandfather. If anyone can find those bandits, it's him." "I didn't know he was part Cherokee," Gabriella said, genuinely surprised. The deputy nodded. "Doesn't talk about it much. Some folks hold it against him, though not in Colorado City. We know his worth." He tipped his hat. "Best be getting on with my rounds." "Looking forward to your performance tonight, Miss Nash." As the day progressed, Gabriella felt her nervousness growing. It had been months since she'd performed for a truly appreciative audience. Her recent shows in smaller towns had been met with polite but uncomprehending applause, the inhabitants more accustomed to raucous saloon music than classical arias, or even the more refined popular ballads she favored. By late afternoon, the entire town seemed to be in a state of anticipation. The performance was to take place in the town hall, a sturdy building that normally hosted council meetings and the occasional dance. When Gabriella arrived to check the space, she found several men arranging chairs in neat rows while others hung oil lamps for additional lighting. "We're expecting a full house," Mayor Benton informed her proudly. "Even got word that some folks are riding in from outlying ranches. Haven't had a proper concert here since, well, ever." The weight of their expectations pressed upon her. "I hope I don't disappoint," she said quietly. "Nonsense," the mayor declared. "From what Mrs. Patterson tells us, you've got a voice like an angel, just the thing to bring some civilization to our little corner of the territory." As evening approached, Mrs. Patterson helped Gabriella prepare, lending her a garnet necklace to complement the blue dress. "For luck," she said, fastening the clasp. "It's beautiful," Gabriella said, touching the stones carefully. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely," Mrs. Patterson assured her. "My Henry gave it to me on our 20th anniversary, said the color reminded him of my blush when he first kissed me." Her eyes grew misty with the memory. 35 years we've been married now, and he still makes me blush." The simple statement of enduring love caught at Gabriella's heart. "That's lovely," she said softly. "Find yourself a man who looks at you the way Henry looks at me, Mrs. Patterson advised. Or the way Sam Rawlins looks at you, for that matter." Before Gabriella could protest once more, there was a knock at the door. Mr. Patterson's voice called through, "Carriage is ready, ladies. Time to head over to the town hall." The short ride through town revealed streets more crowded than Gabriella had yet seen them. People in their Sunday best were making their way toward the town hall, an air of excitement palpable in their animated conversations and quickened steps. Inside the hall, Gabriella was escorted to a small antechamber to wait while the audience assembled. Through the door, she could hear the growing murmur of voices as the room filled. Mrs. Patterson, clutching her fiddle, peeked out periodically to report on the gathering crowd. "Standing room only," she exclaimed after her third reconnaissance. "And you'll never guess who just arrived, Sam Rawlins. Looks like he made it back just in time, though he's in need of a wash and a shave." Gabriella's pulse quickened. "Is he? Did he find the bandits?" "Don't know," Mrs. Patterson admitted. "He just nodded to me and took a seat at the back. Didn't even go home to clean up first by the looks of him." Mayor Benton appeared at the door. "Ready, Miss Nash? Folks are getting mighty eager out there." Drawing a deep breath, Gabriella nodded. "I'm ready." She followed the mayor onto the makeshift stage, where the hotel's piano had been transported at considerable effort. A hush fell over the crowd as she took her place, and in the silence, she could feel hundreds of eyes upon her. Scanning the audience, she spotted Sam immediately, standing against the back wall, his tall frame unmistakable even in the dimly lit room. Their eyes met briefly across the distance, and he gave a slight nod, the gesture somehow communicating both encouragement and something more personal that sent a warmth spreading through her chest. Mr. Calloway, serving as her accompanist for the first half of the program, settled at the piano. Gabriella nodded to him, and as the opening notes of "Believe Me, If" all those endearing young charms filled the hall, she began to sing. From the first note, she knew this performance would be different. The audience's rapt attention enveloped her like a physical embrace, and she found herself singing not just with her voice but with her whole heart. Each song flowed into the next ballads, arias, and folk tunes arranged to showcase her range and expressiveness. When the intermission came, the applause was thunderous, many in the audience rising to their feet. Gabriella curtsied deeply, genuinely moved by their response. In the antechamber, she took a few moments to catch her breath and sip water that Mrs. Patterson had waiting. "You're magnificent, dear," the older woman enthused. "I've never heard such singing, not even in Denver when Henry took me to the opera house for our 30th anniversary." A knock at the door interrupted her praise. Mayor Benton entered, followed by a well-dressed gentleman Gabriella didn't recognize. "Miss Nash, this is Mr. Horace Fleming from Denver," the mayor announced. "He's the one who sent you the telegram." Fleming stepped forward, bowing slightly. "Miss Nash, your reputation preceded you, but even so, I find myself astounded by your talent. I am the manager of the Denver Opera House, and I would like to discuss an engagement with you, a series of concerts that could establish you firmly in Denver society." Gabriella's heart leaped at the unexpected opportunity. "Mr. Fleming, I'm honored. I had hoped to perform in Denver eventually, but I never imagined the honor is mine," Fleming assured her. "We've been seeking to expand our offerings beyond traditional opera, and a voice like yours would draw appreciative crowds. I can offer a guaranteed fee plus a percentage of ticket sales." The conversation continued, with Fleming outlining terms that were more generous than any Gabriella had received before. By the time he departed with a promise to speak further after the performance, her head was spinning with possibilities. "Well," Mrs. Patterson exclaimed, "Denver Opera House. That's quite something, my dear." "It's what I came west hoping for," Gabriella admitted. "A chance to build a reputation in a growing city." "And now it's fallen right into your lap," Mrs. Patterson said, though there was a note of something like disappointment in her voice. Before Gabriella could respond, it was time for the second half of the program. As she took the stage again, her eyes sought out Sam in the back of the room. He was still there, his expression unreadable at this distance. For this portion, Mrs. Patterson joined her with the fiddle for several folk tunes and spirituals. The combination of voice, piano, and violin created a rich tapestry of sound that filled the hall and seemed to touch something deep in the audience. When Gabriella concluded with "Home, Sweet Home," there wasn't a dry eye in the house, including, she realized with some surprise, her own. The ovation that followed was unlike anything she had experienced before, even in the concert halls of Boston. The entire audience was on its feet, applauding, cheering, and stamping. She curtsied again and again, moved beyond words by their response. As the crowd finally began to disperse, many lingered to offer personal congratulations. Gabriella accepted their praise graciously, though her eyes kept drifting to the back of the room, searching for Sam. He had disappeared, and despite the triumph of the evening, she felt a pang of disappointment. Fleming approached again, even more enthusiastic after the complete performance. "Miss Nash, I insist you come to Denver as soon as possible. We can arrange accommodations, rehearsals, everything you need. When can you leave?" "I'm not sure," Gabriella stammered, caught off guard by his urgency. "I've lost my belongings, as you may have heard. I need to replace some items before traveling." "A mere detail," Fleming waved dismissively. "We can advance you funds against your first performance. In fact, I have a carriage returning to Denver tomorrow morning. You could be settled in a proper hotel by tomorrow evening." The offer was everything she had hoped for when starting her journey west, yet Gabriella found herself hesitating. "May I have the night to consider?" This is all happening rather quickly. Fleming looked mildly disappointed but nodded. Of course, but I must leave by noon tomorrow. The opera season waits for no one. As the crowd thinned, Gabriella found herself surrounded by the Pattersons, Mayor Benton, and several other town notables, all exclaiming over her success and Fleming's offer. "Denver," Mrs. Patterson said. "What an opportunity, indeed," Mayor Benton agreed. "Though we'll be sorry to see you go so soon, Miss Nash. You've brought something special to Colorado City." Their genuine warmth touched her. These people, strangers just days ago, had welcomed her with open hearts. "I haven't decided yet," she found herself saying. "Mr. Fleming's offer is wonderful, but I—" She trailed off, not sure how to explain the conflict she felt. A commotion at the entrance drew everyone's attention. Sheriff Rawlins strode in, followed by two other men leading a third whose hands were bound. "Evening, folks," Sam said, tipping his hat. "Sorry to interrupt, but I thought Miss Nash might like to meet the man who robbed her stagecoach." He pushed the bound man forward. "This here's Jack Harmon, leader of the gang that's been terrorizing the stage route." Gabriella stared at the bandit, a rough-looking man with a scar running down one cheek. "You're sure it's him?" "Dead sure," Sam confirmed. "Caught him and his boys trying to sell your violin in Gold Hill." He reached behind him, and one of the other men handed him a familiar case. "My violin." Gabriella gasped, rushing forward. Sam presented it to her with a gentle smile. "Thought you might want this back. Managed to recover most of your other belongings too, though I'm afraid the money's long gone." With trembling hands, Gabriella opened the case to find her grandmother's violin nestled safely inside. "I never thought I'd see it again," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "Thank you, Sheriff. I don't know how to repay you." "Just doing my job, Miss Nash," he said, though the warmth in his eyes suggested it had been more than duty that drove him to track the bandits through the night. As the other men took Harmon away to the jail, Sam lingered. He looked exhausted, his clothes dusty from the trail, a day's growth of beard shadowing his jaw. Yet to Gabriella he had never appeared more handsome. "You made it to the performance," she said softly. "Wouldn't have missed it for anything," he replied. "You're singing." "Well, I've never heard anything like it." "High praise from a man who's just spent 24 hours tracking bandits," she teased gently. A faint smile touched his lips. "Worth every hour." He glanced at the group still gathered nearby, his expression growing more serious. "I hear Fleming from Denver was here. Offering you a position. News travels fast," Gabriella observed. "Small town," Sam shrugged. "So, will you be leaving for Denver tomorrow?" There was something in his voice, a careful neutrality that didn't quite mask a deeper emotion that made Gabriella's heart skip a beat. "I haven't decided," she admitted. "It's a wonderful opportunity, but—" Sam prompted when she hesitated. Before she could respond, Fleming approached, having overheard the conversation. "Miss Nash, I understand your violin has been recovered. This is excellent news. Now there's nothing to prevent your departure tomorrow." Sam's expression shuddered at Fleming's words. "Congratulations on your new opportunity, Miss Nash," he said formally, stepping back. "If you'll excuse me, I need to check on my prisoners." He turned and strode away before Gabriella could say anything further, leaving her staring after him with a confused mix of emotions churning inside her. "Now then," Fleming continued, oblivious to her distress, "shall we say 9 o'clock tomorrow for departure? My carriage will collect you from the hotel. Mr. Fleming, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but I really must have time to consider," Gabriella said more firmly. "I've had quite a shock these past few days." Fleming frowned slightly but nodded. "Very well. Until tomorrow morning, then." As he departed, Mrs. Patterson moved to Gabriella's side. "You look like you could use a cup of tea, dear. Come back to the hotel and we'll have a chat." The walk back to the Grand was quiet, the streets now mostly empty as the townsfolk returned to their homes. Inside the hotel parlor, Mr. Patterson built up the fire while his wife prepared tea. When they were settled with steaming cups, Mrs. Patterson broached the subject that clearly weighed on her mind. "So, Denver," she said, "it's a fine opportunity." "It is," Gabriella agreed. "The kind I dreamed of when I left Boston." "But," Mrs. Patterson prompted, echoing Sam's earlier question. Gabriella sighed, staring into her tea. "But I'm not sure it's what I want anymore, or at least not right away." "And what is it you want, dear?" The question hung in the air, deceptively simple yet profoundly complex. What did she want? Security, fame, a place to belong, love? "I don't know," she admitted finally. "When I left Boston, I was running away as much as toward something. My fiancé had betrayed me, my parents were gone, and music seemed like the only constant in my life. I thought success on the stage would fill the emptiness." She smiled ruefully. "Perhaps that sounds foolish." "Not at all, Mrs. Patterson said gently. "We all seek meaning in different ways, but sometimes what we need isn't what we think we want. Like ending up stranded in Colorado City," Gabriella suggested with a slight smile. "Exactly like that," Mrs. Patterson agreed. "Sometimes life's detours are its real destinations." They sat in companionable silence for a few moments, sipping their tea. Finally, Gabriella voiced the thought that had been hovering at the edges of her mind. "Sheriff Rawlins. Sam. He's a good man, isn't he?" Mrs. Patterson's eyes twinkled. "One of the best I know. Came here 5 years ago, not much more than a boy with a badge and something to prove. The town was rough then, we had 3 killings in his first month. But Sam brought order without bringing tyranny. He's fair, honest, and brave." She paused. "And lonely, I think, though he'd never admit it." "He risked his life to get my violin back," Gabriella said softly. "That he did," Mrs. Patterson nodded. "And not just because it's his job." Another silence fell, broken only by the crackling of the fire. Outside, a light rain began to fall, pattering against the windows. "Denver will still be there in a month," Mrs. Patterson observed casually. "Or 3. Gabriella looked up, meeting the older woman's knowing gaze. "What are you suggesting?" "Only that some opportunities are worth waiting for, while others might slip away if not grasped quickly." She set down her teacup. "You've made quite an impression on our little town, Miss Nash. I suspect we could persuade the council to engage you for a series of performances not as grand as Denver, perhaps, but enough to keep you comfortable while you consider your options." "Stay in Colorado City," Gabriella mused, the idea taking root despite its unexpectedness. "But what would I do between performances?" "We've been hoping to start music lessons for the children," Mrs. Patterson said. "The school teacher, Miss Wilson, has been asking for someone with proper training." The prospect was appealing in a way Gabriella hadn't anticipated. She'd taught briefly in Boston before embarking on her performance career, and the memory of young faces lighting up as they mastered a simple tune brought a smile to her lips. "I'll think about it," she promised. That night, sleep eluded her once more. She lay awake, watching moonlight filter through the curtains as she weighed her options. Denver offered excitement, cultural stimulation, and the professional recognition she'd sought. Colorado City offered what? A simpler life, certainly, friendly faces. The chance to make a real difference in children's lives through music. And Sam Rawlins, with his steady gaze and quiet strength. Dawn found her still undecided. She rose and dressed, then took her violin to the hotel's small garden at the rear of the building. As the first light of morning painted the eastern sky, she began to play, letting the music express what words could not. The melody that emerged was not one of her usual concert pieces, but a folk tune she'd learned from her grandmother, simple, heartfelt, and utterly American. As she played, she felt a sense of peace settling over her, as if the music itself were guiding her toward her decision. So absorbed was she in the music that she didn't notice Sam's arrival until she lowered her bow at the end of the piece. He stood at the garden gate, watching her with an expression that made her heart race. "That was beautiful," he said quietly. "Thank you," she replied, suddenly shy. "My grandmother taught me that tune." She said it was older than the nation itself, brought over from Scotland, and changed by the mountains and rivers of the New World until it became something uniquely American. "Like you," Sam observed, stepping into the garden. "European training shaped by American spirit." The insight startled her. "I've never thought of it that way, but yes, I suppose that's true." He moved closer, his tall frame silhouetted against the sunrise. "Fleming's carriage is being prepared. He seems confident you'll be leaving with him." "Is he?" Gabriella carefully placed her violin back in its case. "And what do you think, Sheriff? Will I be going to Denver today?" Sam hesitated, his blue eyes searching hers. "I think you'll do what's best for your future, Miss Nash. You've got rare talent. It deserves to be heard by as many people as possible." "That's not what I asked," she said gently. "I asked what you think I'll do, not what you think I should do." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "You've got me there." He took a deep breath. "I hope you might consider staying in Colorado City a while longer. We're not Denver, but we've got plenty to offer a woman of your abilities." "And would one of those offerings happen to be the company of a certain lawman?" Gabriella asked, surprising herself with her boldness. Sam's smile deepened, reaching his eyes. "It might, if that lawman thought his attentions would be welcomed." "They would," she said softly. He took another step toward her, close enough now that she could see the flecks of gray in his blue eyes. "In that case, Miss Nash, I'd be honored if you'd allow me to call on you properly. Perhaps dinner at the hotel restaurant this evening." "I'd like that very much," Gabriella replied, a warm glow spreading through her. The moment hung between them, fragile and precious. Then the sound of carriage wheels on gravel broke the spell. Fleming's driver was bringing the conveyance around to the front of the hotel. "I should speak to Mr. Fleming," Gabriella said, reluctance evident in her voice. Sam nodded, stepping back. "Of course." She gathered her violin case and started toward the hotel, then paused, turning back to him. "Sheriff Rawlins." "Yes, Miss Nash, I've been waiting for you too, I think. I just didn't know it until now." His answering smile was like sunrise breaking over the mountains, gradual, then brilliant. Inside the hotel, Fleming was impatiently pacing the lobby, pocket watch in hand. "Ah, Miss Nash, there you are. The carriage is ready. Have you packed your things?" "Mr. Fleming," Gabriella began carefully, "I'm deeply grateful for your generous offer, but I'm afraid I must decline, at least for now." His expression fell into disbelief. "Decline? But my dear young lady, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. The Denver Opera House doesn't extend invitations lightly." "I understand," she assured him, "and I'm honored by your interest, but recent events have made me reevaluate my plans. I'd like to stay in Colorado City for a time, perhaps a few months. After that, if your offer still stands, I would be delighted to consider it." Fleming's disappointment was evident, but he was a businessman who recognized determination when he saw it. "I see. Well, talent such as yours is rare enough that I'm willing to be patient. Shall we say 3 months? The winter season will be beginning then, and we could feature you prominently." 3 months sounds reasonable, Gabriella agreed, relief washing through her. "Thank you for understanding." After Fleming departed, still shaking his head over her decision, Gabriella sought out Mrs. Patterson, who was supervising the breakfast service. "I've decided to stay," she announced without preamble. The older woman's face lit up. Wonderful. And might a certain sheriff have influenced this decision? Gabriella couldn't help but smile. He may have played a part. But it's more than that, I feel. At home here in a way I haven't since my parents died. I'd like to see where that feeling leads. Well, we're delighted to have you, Mrs. Patterson said warmly. Now, about those music lessons we discussed. The next few weeks passed in a whirl of activity. The town council eagerly accepted Gabriella's proposal to stay and teach, offering her a small but comfortable cottage that had once housed the previous schoolteacher. With Mrs. Patterson's help, she furnished it simply but elegantly, creating a space that felt truly her own for the first time in years. Word spread quickly that the famous singer was offering music lessons, and soon Gabriella found herself with a full roster of students, children and adults alike who were eager to learn. She scheduled a regular performance at the town hall for the first Saturday of each month, ensuring the cultural enrichment the citizens craved while allowing herself time for teaching and other pursuits. Chief among those other pursuits were her evenings with Sam. True to his word, he called on her properly, escorting her to dinner at the hotel restaurant that first night and many nights thereafter. They attended church socials, went on picnics by the creek that ran behind the town, and spent long hours in conversation, discovering the many ways in which their different backgrounds had nonetheless led them to compatible values and dreams. On a crisp October evening, 6 weeks after her arrival in Colorado City, Sam invited Gabriella for a ride into the foothills. The aspens were turning gold, creating a spectacular backdrop against the evergreens and the distant peaks already dusted with early snow. "It's breathtaking," Gabriella said as they reached a high meadow overlooking the town. "I've never seen such colors." "Wait until spring," Sam replied, helping her down from her horse. "The wildflowers carpet these hills in blues and purples that would put a royal robe to shame." "I'd like to see that," she said, wondering if she would still be in Colorado City when spring came. Her 3 months would be up in December, and Fleming had written twice already, confirming his eagerness to present her in Denver. Sam spread a blanket on a flat rock overlooking the valley, and they shared the picnic. Mrs. Patterson had prepared fried chicken, biscuits, and apple tarts still warm from the oven. As the sun began its descent toward the western peaks, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Sam grew unusually quiet. "Is something wrong?" Gabriella asked finally, concerned by his pensive expression. "Not wrong," he said slowly. "Just important." He turned to face her fully, taking her hands in his. "Gabriella, these past weeks have been the happiest of my life." Her heart quickened at the intensity in his gaze. "For me as well," she admitted softly. "I know you have decisions to make soon," Sam continued. "Fleming's offer is still waiting, and you deserve every success your talent can bring you." "But," she prompted when he paused. A smile touched his lips. "There's that word again." He drew a deep breath. "But I'm hoping you might consider a different future, one here in Colorado City, with me." From his pocket, he withdrew a small velvet box. Opening it, he revealed a simple but elegant ring, a single pearl set in gold. "I love you, Gabriella Nash," he said, his voice steady despite the vulnerability in his eyes. "I think I started falling for you the moment I saw you standing on the street with that torn poster in your hands. I know it hasn't been long, but some things don't need time to be certain. I'm asking if you'll marry me and make your home here permanently." Tears welled in Gabriella's eyes, blurring the sunset and Sam's beloved face. "Oh, Sam," she whispered. For a heart-stopping moment, he misinterpreted her tears. "If it's too soon, no," she interrupted, squeezing his hands tightly. "It's not too soon. It's perfect." "Yes," Samuel Rawlins. I will marry you." The joy that blazed across his face was like nothing she had ever seen. He slipped the ring onto her finger, then drew her into his arms, his kiss conveying all the love and promise that words could not express. When they finally parted, breathless and laughing, the sun had dipped below the mountains, leaving the sky awash in deepening purple. "We should head back before it gets dark," Sam said reluctantly. Gabriella nodded, though she was loath to leave this perfect moment. "Mrs. Patterson will be beside herself when she hears," she said with a laugh as they mounted their horses. "Half the town will be," Sam agreed, grinning. "The other half has been betting on when I'd proposed since about your second week here." The ride back to town was filled with plans and dreams: a wedding before Christmas, a home they would build together in the spring, children someday. As they approached the outskirts of Colorado City, Gabriella reined in her horse, gazing at the lamplit windows that represented the community that had so quickly become her own. "No regrets?" Sam asked softly, pulling up beside her. "About Denver?" Gabriella shook her head, certainty filling her heart. "None whatsoever. Denver has its opera house, but Colorado City has you, and that makes it the only place I want to be." As they rode into town side by side, Gabriella reflected on the strange twist of fate that had brought her here. A stagecoach robbery that should have been a disaster had instead led her to the greatest happiness she had ever known. Sometimes, it seemed, life's most difficult moments were merely setting the stage for its greatest joys. 3 days before Christmas, Gabriella Nash became Gabriella Rawlins in a ceremony that filled the town church to overflowing. She wore a gown of ivory silk ordered specially from Denver. Fleming had sent it as a wedding gift, along with renewed assurances that the opera house's doors would always be open to her should she ever wish to perform there. Sam, resplendent in a new black suit, watched her walk down the aisle with wonder in his eyes, as if he couldn't quite believe his good fortune. After exchanging vows, they emerged into a light snowfall that dusted Gabriella's veil like diamond dust. The entire town turned out for the celebration at the hotel, where Mrs. Patterson had outdone herself with a feast that would be talked about for years to come. As the newlyweds prepared to depart for their honeymoon, a week at a mountain lodge owned by one of Sam's friends, Gabriella paused on the hotel steps, overwhelmed by the love and acceptance that surrounded them. "Happy?" Sam asked, his arm secure around her waist. She leaned into him, savoring his warmth against the winter chill. "More than I ever thought possible. And to think," he murmured, brushing a snowflake from her cheek, "all this because a stage was robbed and left you stranded." "And because a handsome sheriff was waiting for me anyway," she added, rising on tiptoe to kiss him as the townsfolk cheered, and the snow continued to fall, blanketing Colorado City in a perfect white Christmas. As years passed, their love only deepened. Gabriella continued teaching music and performing regularly, not just in Colorado City, but occasionally in Denver as well, though she always returned eagerly to the home she shared with Sam. The cottage they had built together grew, as their family did first with the arrival of their son, James, in 1880, and then their daughter, Elizabeth, 2 years later. Colorado City grew too, becoming a hub for the mining industry, and later a popular destination for those seeking the healing mountain air. Through it all, Sam remained sheriff, respected and beloved by the community he served, while Gabriella's music school flourished, nurturing generations of musicians. On their 20th anniversary, as they sat on the porch of their home watching the sunset paint the mountains in hues of gold and crimson, Sam took Gabriella's hand, his touch as gentle as it had been on that first day. "Any regrets?" he asked, echoing the question he had posed on the night of their engagement. Gabriella turned to him, her heart as full as it had been on their wedding day. "Only that we didn't meet sooner," she replied. "But then again, maybe we met exactly when we were supposed to." Sam's smile, still capable of making her heart skip a beat after all these years, was answer enough. They had found each other at precisely the right moment when a stagecoach robbery left her stranded, and a cowboy sheriff who had been waiting anyway offered her not just assistance but a lifetime of love. In the end, Gabriella reflected, it wasn't the applause of Denver's elite or the accolades of critics that had brought her true fulfillment, but the simple joy of a life well lived with the man she loved in a town that had become the home of her heart. And that, she knew with absolute certainty, was worth more than all the stages in the world.